My name is Ella Thomas. I'm 38, and for the past 15 years, I've built a career I keep deliberately under wraps. While my fiancé, Daniel, proudly talks about being the director of marketing at a global firm, I let people believe I have a modest job in the legal world. The truth? I'm a federal appellate judge specializing in constitutional law and high-impact civil rights cases. But I've learned over the years that revealing that kind of power complicates relationships. People stop seeing you. They just see status. So I keep it simple. To most people, I'm just Ella, the quiet woman who works in law. Daniel and I met 3 years ago in a little bookstore in DC. He was flipping through marketing strategy books, and I was hunting down a rare comparative law edition. We both reached for the same Garcia Marquez novel and started talking. 3 years later, we were planning our wedding. "You sure you don't want something bigger?" he asked one evening as we wrapped up the final wedding details. We decided on an intimate ceremony, just 50 guests in the garden of a historic estate in Virginia. "I like simple," I said, casually flipping through the legal briefs I'd brought for the weekend. I was deep into a complicated reproductive rights case that needed my attention before Monday. Daniel eyed the stack. "You're always working." "I still don't really know what you do." "Mostly civil cases," I replied with a shrug. Technically true, but far from the whole story. Only 2 people outside my professional world know the truth. My assistant Rachel and my sister Patricia. Patricia's a journalist. She's followed my career from my first clerkship all the way to my appointment on the appellate bench. She's always understood the discretion my job demands. Daniel's family, on the other hand, not so understanding. His older sister, Victoria, made it clear from the start that she didn't think I measured up. She's married to a wealthy businessman, lives in a mansion, and hosts charity galas for DC elite. To her, I'm just some no-name lawyer with no fashion sense, no connections, and no pedigree. I just don't see what Daniel sees in her. I overheard her telling their mother at a family dinner. "She's so plain. He could have married someone from our world." His mom, Mrs. Harper, was subtler, but no less dismissive. She'd ask about my little legal job with that fake nice smile, like I'd eventually give it up to become a full-time housewife. The wedding day. The morning of the wedding was bright and clear. I got up early to finalize an opinion on a tricky constitutional appeal. As I worked, Patricia poked her head into the room. "Ella, seriously, it's your wedding day," she groaned, touching up her makeup. "I'm done," I said, slipping the case file into my bag. The ceremony was set for 5. Guests began arriving around 4, mingling among white and gold flowers in the garden. Daniel's family took over the front rows, dressed to the nines and chatting about business deals. From my window, I spotted Victoria bossing people around like she was the bride. Her dress sparkled in the afternoon light. Probably cost more than a teacher makes in a month. "I still don't get what he sees in her," I heard her say again, loud enough for me to catch. "She's so average." I felt the irritation bubble up, but kept it locked down. Emotional control is second nature. Comes with the job. "She probably does paperwork, divorces, or wills, or something boring," Victoria added. "She works way too much," Mrs. Harper chimed in. "If she's going to join this family, she should be supporting his career, not running around with some side hustle." Patricia appeared beside me, arms crossed. "Want me to tell them who you really are?" I shook my head. "Let them find out on their own." The ceremony. At 5, the music began. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, passing friends' warm smiles and Daniel's family's half-hearted ones. Victoria leaned over to whisper something to her husband, pretending to smile. Daniel stood at the altar in a sharp black suit, waiting with the officiant. And the officiant? That was Judge Robert Anderson, longtime colleague, friend, and someone I've worked with on landmark constitutional cases. He agreed to officiate as both a personal favor and because thankfully his court schedule was clear. "Dear friends," he began, his voice deep and steady, We're gathered here to witness the marriage of Daniel and Ella. His tone was powerful, commanding yet warm. Daniel's colleagues looked impressed. His family looked confused. Marriage, Anderson continued, is rooted in mutual respect, deep understanding, and the ability to recognize each other's worth beyond appearances, beyond titles. Victoria frowned, like something about his tone or words rang a bell. After we exchanged vows and rings, Judge Anderson pronounced us husband and wife. Daniel kissed me, and for a moment everything else melted away, just joy. The reception revelation. At the reception, waiters passed champagne and guests gathered in groups on the terrace. Daniel's family stayed in a cluster near the head table. Who was that judge? I heard Victoria whisper to her mother. He acted like someone important, Mrs. Harper replied. Probably some local judge Ella knows from traffic court or whatever, she said, waving it off. Judge Anderson came over to our table, still looking sharp, but more relaxed now. Ella, he said warmly, shaking my hand. Congratulations. Daniel's a lucky man. Thank you, Robert, I said, smiling. It really meant a lot to have you here. Daniel stood to greet him, too. Thank you for officiating. The ceremony was perfect. My pleasure, Anderson said. Then turned to me with the same serious look he uses when something important is about to come up. Ella, I need a quick word about the Harish versus State case. The full bench will be reviewing your brief on Tuesday. My heart jumped. That case was a big one. A constitutional appeal with potential national labor implications. I've been working on it for months. Is something wrong with the brief? I asked, shifting automatically into judge mode. Not at all, Anderson said. Your analysis of Article 123 and how it aligns with international precedent? Brilliant. Several justices are already on board. Honestly, I think it's going to be unanimous. I noticed a few heads turn. Victoria had crept closer, pretending to admire the centerpiece, clearly eavesdropping. Then Anderson continued, this time more formal. Also, have you given serious thought to the Chief Justice's offer? The court would be lucky to have you. We need minds like yours. The terrace went quiet. Even the waiters paused. Justice Thomas, he added, using my full title. Your work in constitutional law has been exceptional. The Supreme Court would be better for it. Daniel turned to me completely stunned. In the 3 years we'd been together, I'd spoken vaguely about working in law, but never offered details. He knew it was important to me, but he had no idea just how much weight my position carried. Justice? Mrs. Harper echoed in disbelief. Judge Anderson gave her a respectful nod. Your daughter-in-law is one of the most respected legal minds in the country. Her rulings have helped uphold the constitutional rights of millions. Victoria's voice cracked as she finally found her words. You're saying Ella's on the Supreme Court? Third Circuit, I confirmed, no longer seeing a reason to hide the truth. I specialize in constitutional law and high-impact civil appeals. The shift. The reaction was instant and silent, like someone had dropped a pin in the middle of a crowded ballroom. For years, Daniel's family had dismissed my career as some small-time legal job, never realizing that my rulings were published nationally and cited in major legal journals. But you never told me, Daniel said, his voice a mix of awe, admiration, and maybe a hint of hurt. I preferred to keep it private, I said gently. My role comes with a lot of responsibility, and sometimes it's better to keep work and personal life separate. Judge Anderson nodded in agreement. Justice Thomas is known for her discretion. That's part of why her work is so effective. Her humility never gets in the way of the impact she's had on the judiciary. The next few minutes felt surreal. People who had barely acknowledged me earlier now approached with newfound respect. Some asked thoughtful legal questions. Others referenced landmark cases I'd written opinions on. The shift in tone was unmistakable. Victoria returned again. No longer smug, but clearly trying to recalibrate. Ella, I had no idea. If I'd known. I'm still the same woman you met 3 years ago, I said calmly. My job doesn't define who I am, just like yours doesn't define you. Even Mrs. Harper stepped forward, her usual condescension completely gone. Justice Thomas, please forgive our ignorance. We truly didn't know. There's nothing to forgive, I said sincerely. You responded based on the information you had. Daniel took my hand, his expression a mix of pride and reflection. Why didn't you tell me everything? Because I needed you to love Ella, not the title, I explained. I wanted to know we were choosing each other for the right reasons. The new dynamic. From that point on, everything shifted. The atmosphere at the reception became warmer, more genuine. Guests asked real questions about the courts, about the Constitution. Even Victoria, once dismissive, now looked fascinated. How long have you been on the Supreme Court? She asked during dinner, her tone finally respectful. I've been a justice for 15 years, I replied. But I started as a federal judge 20 years ago. It's been a long, meaningful journey. And the cases you handle, they're really that important? All cases matter to the people involved, I said, choosing my words carefully. But yes, many have shaped national conversations around civil rights and liberty. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Daniel adjusted quickly to life with a public figure, understanding the long hours, the travel, the occasional media spotlight. One evening, while I reviewed files in our living room, I asked him, "Does it bother you that I kept this part of my life private?" At first a little, he admitted. But now, not at all. I get why you did it. And honestly, I'm proud. Proud that you picked me. Not because of what you are, but because of who you are. Even his family evolved. Victoria, of all people, became my biggest supporter, introducing me as my sister-in-law the justice at every social event and texting me links to high-profile legal stories with commentary. You know what's hilarious? Patricia joked over dinner a few months later. Now, Victoria tells everyone she always knew you were special. I smiled, thinking back to the day of our wedding. People see what they're ready to see. Once her lens shifted, she noticed what was always there. The final chapter. A year later, I received official word. I'd been nominated to the highest level of the Supreme Court. The confirmation ceremony would be televised across the country. It was the end of my quiet chapter and the beginning of something much bigger. Daniel stood beside me, sharp in his navy suit, his pride unmistakable. I spotted Victoria and Mrs. Harper in the front row, misty-eyed and beaming. After the ceremony, while reporters gathered and cameras flashed, Daniel leaned in close. "Do you ever regret keeping it all a secret?" he asked softly. I glanced over to see Victoria chatting eagerly with a journalist and Mrs. Harper smiling for the cameras. "No," I said with a quiet smile. "Some truths are meant to be revealed when the world is finally ready to hear them." The story had come full circle. The woman once dismissed as unremarkable now held one of the nation's highest honors. But that wasn't the reward. The real prize was knowing that Daniel and I chose each other without titles, status, or expectations. Because like justice, love doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs truth and the right timing to be seen. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe to our channel. This is Revenge Scales, where justice always finds its way. See you next time.